I hope you enjoyed your coffee, and we'll be starting with the final discussion panel. And before that, we'll see a short video, which will be in Spanish with English subtitles. And it's an interview with Marisol Quezada, who is the president of the ITU, which is a International Triathlon Union. And okay, so let's watch the video now.
Bueno, la palabra activista de género me parece un poco fuerte, pero sí, en realidad hay que serlo porque es necesario que todos y todas unamos nuestras fuerzas para poder llegar a unos niveles que sean aceptables. Cada uno en su parcela tiene que primero ser consciente de cuál es la situación, porque creo que ese es uno de los principales problemas, es que es una sociedad tan masculina que realmente no tiene constancia, no ve claramente que es una cuestión que hay que, digamos, superar, puesto que, por ejemplo, entre las normas de buen gobierno existe la igualdad de género, o debería haber una cierta igualdad de género. La Federación Internacional de Triatlón tiene en este momento a 3 mujeres al frente, presidenta, secretaria general y vicepresidenta primera, lo que supone un 60% del table officers y en el Ejecutivo rozamos casi del 50%. Todo eso ha sido gracias a que el presidente anterior, Les McDonald, puso desde el primer momento de la creación, en el año 89, de la creación de la Federación Internacional, puso todo el esfuerzo por promover a las mujeres. Para mí, desde que fui presidenta de la Comisión Mujer y Deporte del Comité Olímpico Español, soy muy consciente de que tengo que desempeñar un rol muy importante, porque yo he sido una de las privilegiadas que no ha tenido grandes obstáculos para llegar a donde estoy, pero hay que ser consciente de que eso no es lo normal, sino es la excepción. Entonces, una vez que tomas conciencia de que esa es la excepción, realmente prácticamente te tienes que convertir en un activista, porque realmente si no vamos a avanzar nada. El tema del candidato, por decirlo de alguna manera, es el tema crucial en un sistema como es el sistema deportivo, en el cual normalmente es un sistema que va desde abajo hacia arriba y que es necesario que haya elecciones anteriormente para poder acceder al puesto siguiente. Entonces es realmente muy complicado. A mí, digamos que la práctica deportiva me hace sentir libre, y eso es lo que creo que ayuda a luchar por lo que realmente quieres, ¿no? Y lo que yo quería y he querido ha sido ser presidenta de la Federación Internacional, y por lo tanto creo que eso me ha ayudado muchísimo. Y bueno, quizás no todas las mujeres les pasa lo mismo que a mí, evidentemente, pero creo que sí que es una herramienta imprescindible.
And now I would like to invite the moderator of the final discussion panel, and please welcome Mr. Huibert, who is currently a project manager for organizational development with the federations and NOC of National Sports Confederation. Mr. Brantz, the floor is yours.
Well, people, thank you all for coming back to this final panel discussion that we are having. And we've been talking about the subject now for 1.5 days almost. And you get to know each other, you know, you get to learn from people, and it almost feels like that we've become a family. But there's a concern that I have, because when I'm looking in the hall here right now, I see everybody spread out. So I would try to get you together, and I would really like to ask you all people to stand up, please. And the people that are sitting in that section, I would really like you to get over to the other side and find a place next to somebody that you don't know yet. So, and every other people that are sitting next to their regular companions, please find another place so that you will be sitting next to somebody you don't know yet. So please make room for the people coming in. Yeah, it seems a bit strange, but trust me, you will be happy that we did this. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just make room for some new people, new faces. That's always, there's some extra spaces here up front, so you can come over to the first row here. Shake hands, that's also very good. Get to learn new people. So here in the front row, there's some extra spaces. Very good, sir. Yep. Over here at the front row, there's some place. Oh, you're taking this very seriously. Okay, so while the last two gentlemen are finding a place for themselves, you now notice that it sometimes takes a little bit of effort to get to know other people, to learn from a new insight. So you do need to take this effort. It takes some time, but you will profit from it. Trust me on that. So the reason that I'm standing here actually is, and I'm taking this opportunity to promote the MEMOS program. It's an educational program supported by the IOC, funded by Olympic Solidarity. And I've done this Master in Business Administration for the last year, and to me that was a quite shocking experience. Because in the end we were working with 35 nations from 5 continents, people from ages like 21 versus 63 years old, people from various countries, and at the end of the year we became to know that we really learn from each and every one of us. And it came to me that diversity is something that you actually can turn on and as a learning experience for yourself pretty easily. So if you ever, from your NOC, have the opportunity to get someone in the MEMOS program, I'd be very happy to support that. Vita, MEMOS 20 forever. Okay, so, well, now that said, I want to share one more observation with you, because some of you may remember that I received this ball from Hella yesterday. And there's actually 2 statistics that I want to share with you. I don't have exact figures, but one surprising thing was that after Mr. Bark had his presentation and we had the first round of sharing, a lot of people left the room, and it dramatically dropped the number of gentlemen in this audience. So that is a bit of a setback, because we formally learned that men are actually very important to bring this subject further. Well, anyway, she threw the ball to someone making it a personal quest to make a difference in this subject. And I was very surprised that I was actually the only one standing up to receive this ball. And I take it very seriously. She says, "Go, Huibert, he for she, I believe in you." And I thought of handing it over to a new person at the end of the day, but I think I keep it. And I'll take it back to Holland, and as a promise, I will make sure that you once go back to Holland to learn from the subject and what we did on the subject. So I hope that will happen in the near future. And that will be the moment that somebody can apply to have this ball and to make women leadership his quest. So that's there. Okay, well, I've talked enough now, because I want to introduce a very special panel to you. And it starts off with a man, which is Niels Nygaard. He is the president of the NOC and National Sports Confederation of Denmark. Thank you. Secondly, I would be very glad to introduce Marijke Fleuren. She is the president of the European Hockey Federation and board member of the International Hockey Federation. Thank you, Marijke. And thirdly, I want to introduce a very warm welcome to Loreta Lapinskaite from the board of the Swedbank in Lithuania. And finally, Mrs. Nathalie Huet from the Badminton Federation in France as Vice President. So I'll leave this here. So just one last final remark. I've been talking about the men in the room, and I hope that you can really participate in the final panel discussion in terms of questions and remarks. It may be that you are a bit intimidated by the fact that we're stressing the fact that you are very important. I have put on my Twitter account, maybe it's on there in a minute, a very special poem for the man in the room that supports you being a man, and that, you know, it helps maybe. So we can do this, guys. Okay. Well, thank you very much, panel members. Can I first maybe start off with Ms. Nathalie Huet? So because you are working in the French Badminton Federation, and in France, the government took up on a law to say 40%, 60% women, men minimum. So can you tell us something about the experience that you have?
Yes, we have got a new law in France since 2014 about the equality.
Can you maybe turn it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
So we have got a new law in France since 2014. It's not only about the sport. It's about effective equality between women and men. And it's including professional life, it's including sharing of parental responsibilities, it's fighting against the violence on women, and it's also gender equality in politics and in sport. And they have got, in this law, there is financial penalty if you are not in the gender equality for politics and sport. And it changed a lot of things in France. It's changed a lot of things in politics, because now all the lists, political lists, have to be 50-50 since 27. And so a lot of women are involved in politics now. You can see in the ministry, we have got a lot of women on the idea of Ministry of Sport, Ministry of Culture, Ministry. I don't have all the Ministry of Health and so on. And in sport, it's really important, because now it's quite difficult. It's quite complex, because if you have got more than 25% of license holders from one sex, you are obliged to have 40% of people from each sex in your representative institution for the federation, for the national federation. If you are less than 25%, you are obliged only to have 25% of the representative. As an example, for the gymnastic, where there is most of the people are women, you are obliged to have 25% of men in the representative institution. So it's not only a law for women, it's a law for the gender equality.
Okay.
And so it changed a lot of things in the federation. I have the number, because in 2012, in the executive committee of the federation, there is only 26 women, 26% of women. Mm-hmm. And now, after the last election, we are more than 35% of women in the executive committee. This is the same thing for the executive board. There is only 23%, and now we are more than 30%. We are 117 federations in France. It's a lot of progress, but 14 federations are not in compliance with the law. Okay. They are not. They don't do that. And for now, there is no penalty, financial penalty. We hope that there are going to be a financial penalty during the next election. But there is only 11 women presidents on the National Federation, and only one for Olympic Federation, for the fencing federation. So it's an evolution, but we still have a gap in the application of the law and in the involvement of the women. And for badminton, we are really, really well, because during the last Olympiad, we are 50-50, and now we're also 50-50, because before we have got some low position, and now we are 3 vice presidents and really in the decision making of the federation.
Okay. So in previous panels we've been discussing the fact of using quota, and some people are against and some people are before that. So in your experience, would you say that having a quota is actually quite successful in France?
Yes, I think it's quite successful in France. I'm not for the quota, but with this example we can see that it makes more women who are obliged to be in the politics and are obliged to be in the federation. And I think probably in 5 or 8 years, we don't need more quota, because a lot of women will be involved, and so they have got their place in the federation and in the life in France.
Okay, well, I guess we'll get back to the question whether this special measure is actually effective in all circumstances. But thank you for the first introduction. May I get to Marijke? So you have a long history in boards in the hockey world. So starting in the National Hockey Federation and later on in the European Hockey Federation and in International Hockey Federation. So you have some positive results in the hockey world. So can you tell us something about how did you get there?
Yeah, I don't think especially that I get there, because the sport of field hockey we are talking about, hockey sur gazon, that's a sport for men, women, boys and girls. So the sport itself inspires already everybody to get involved. Yes, indeed, I was involved in the boards from a young age and growing through the years. I started in the European Hockey Federation in 2011 as a president. So indeed, just like Hella described yesterday, I went through the election situation, and yes, that's a tough situation, I can tell you. Originally, I had 2 male opponents. In the end, I had 1 male opponent, a German person in Germany. So you can imagine it was not easy. I think I made it in the end, because my introduction speech was also exactly as Hella explained yesterday, was not a copy of all the speeches I heard that day, but it was really a speech that belonged to me. I was talking about my head and about my heart, and both of course different, but the head part is taking care for a good organization and that kind of things, and the heart part take care for the attention to the people. And I felt the audience changing during my speech. So indeed I made it. I was very happy that I made it. I always explain that it didn't feel like a victory, but it was more that I did again my graduation exams. And that's a lovely feeling, you all will remember. But from that moment on, I really understood what responsibility I had taken. Because you realize if you're there and you have a board of 12 persons, 4 female, 8 men, that it has to happen. You are there and now you have to work. Maybe I can explain a little bit to you what the organization is. We are 43 member associations. We have 1.6 million hockey players in Europe. We have 2 important areas where we work on. Competitions, of course, because that's why people play hockey. Indoor, outdoor, clubs and nations. And especially in the clubs, we are special in Europe. That's not only in hockey, but with a lot of other sports also. And we have a great development department. And in that development department, there you can work on the dreams you have to develop a little bit the society. One part of the development is education, because we understand that if you want to develop hockey, You have to develop the coaches, the umpires, the officials. They have all the same professionalism as the players. But we also have projects. Coming back on the umpires, for example, what we achieved is that from 2012 on, all the matches were umpired, women matches were umpired by women. And the umpires were accompanied by women umpire managers. Officials were all women. Only when we have a joint tournament, men and women, then it's mixed what is behind the table. That looks quite simple, but it's not that simple, I can tell you. But now it's quite normal.
Yeah, so in fact, what you say is that it was actually not so easy to put that forward and to really act on it.
No, it was not easy, but it is exactly the same as you say. If you start and people see, then it's very quick change and everybody thinks it's normal.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you very much for this introduction. Can I go to Niels, Mr. Nygaard? You have the perspective of the NOC of Denmark, but also the IOC as a board member. But first of all, I want to talk with you about what you did in the NOC of Denmark, because you seem to have like 2 pillars in a diversity agenda. So can you elaborate on that?
Yes. First, I'd like to express that I believe that yesterday and today has been very good with the panel debates, been very interesting, and I really hope and believe that what we have been discussing here will have some effect for the future, even though that a lot of my male colleagues are not taking part today. I still believe that some of the effects from our discussions will help in the future. As far as the situation in Denmark, I have been wondering a lot about why is it so hard in sport to get this diversity, to get equal between men and women, but also in other fields. Because in Denmark we have quite an equal society. Men and women in most areas are very equal. On the job markets, in the daily lives, in the universities and so on. But when you look at sport and when we look at certain boards in other organizations, when we look at business in the top spot, the women are still not having their big role. And I think it's because in part of our society we are very conservative, including also sport. And I think that, as Marisol said in the video before, with the pyramid structure we have in sport, which is a kind of democracy, and I like very much to have a democratic society, but with this pyramid structure where we start with the clubs, then we go to the federations, then we go to the national organizations, it really takes a long time before we get this gender equality. When I became president 10 years ago of the NOC of Denmark, this was one of my goals to change this situation. And at that time I said to my members that you have to change this because the politicians ask us to do it, and it doesn't look good that we only have 20% women in our boards and so on. And I kept punching them and say you have to do it. And I must say, it didn't work very well. We had a few more female presidents of our national federations. We have a few % more board members in our 62 national federations, but it didn't really go that fast, and at least not as fast as I wanted it to. So the last 2 or 3 years, we have changed our strategy, saying that to the federations, you don't have to do this because you have to do it and because the politicians ask you to do it, but you have to do it for your own sake, because all scientific evidence shows that in companies, in boards, in organizations where you have equal representation, make much better results. So if you want to have higher sports participation, if you want to win more medals and so on, then you have to have women and men in your boards. And I think that's a way of thinking differently than what we used to do. We are now working with education programs to try and have this idea go into the federations. We are also working with economic incentives. We are making strategic agreements with our 62 federations. So far, 13 of our federations, we have made a strategic agreement concerning diversity. And talking about diversity, of course, the most important thing to work with is to have more equal situation with men and women. But it's in the long run more important, or even more important, to have more young people involved, and also to have more ethnic groups involved. So really we are working on all fields, but mostly stressing the women.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I think we'll be getting back to the importance of diversity in a whole broader spectrum. I was wondering, when you first addressed this point and said out loud that it's more than normal that we take up diversity, was everybody agreeing at first instance?
No, very few were agreeing. They didn't say so, but they just kept their mouths shut and didn't really. So, and they were, when I had my speeches and so on, of course, they would still clap and so on, but they didn't really feel it was that important. And we have, when we have our annual meeting, we have 150 people like we are here, and only about 10% of the delegates are women, because for some reason most of the federation, they send more males than women for our annual meetings. So it's really a long and hard road to walk.
So you have like the different strategies on diversity and recruitment. Is it paying off for you at this moment?
We are improving, but I think it will still take some time, and we need also to have a shift of generation. Looking into the future, I'm quite optimistic. When I look at my daughters and the way they're living, their relationship with their husbands and so on, and the way they are working, I'm quite sure that 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'll have a much better situation. But sport being so conservative as you are, it takes time.
Well, I guess being positive is a good thing, and I think we have the good example here in our panel, how we can see that the corporate life is doing a good job in some areas, at least. Loreta, can I ask you, you have the corporate perspective, Swedbank here in Lithuania. So how do you handle the subject? And since when did you start really moving forward on the subject of the diversity?
Hello, everybody, and really thank you for inviting Banker into this sport event. It's also quite interesting possibility for me to discuss all these topics here. And second thing, what I would like to mention, you know, this morning I understood what I'm really proud what such kind of events is going here in Lithuania. So it means that Lithuanian women are doing something really good. So really welcome to Lithuania. But coming back to your questions, and so I'm banker. My banking experience is more than 20 years. So I suppose that the banking 20 years ago was absolutely not a female's world. I can ensure that. Easy, not easy, but still in the beginning I had a dream, but I should become something important in the banking. And why I was lucky one, I met an organization in which I can really achieve what I want to achieve. And how it started in Swedbank, it's quite simple and easy. They are bankers, they are very good in numbers. So they are calculating business value, calculating opportunities, looking around what they can get else just to be an effective ones. And everything started from discussions, what, you know, something very right is in gender equality. Having around the table different opinions, different points of view, they can earn a little bit more. Maybe they can have a better environment for our employees. So the board was the first step. Then they had quite interesting discussions. In the beginning, you told what not everybody agreeing with you. Okay, so in the beginning, I remember that there were a lot of like statements, what you're talking about. Everything is okay. So if everybody or somebody is telling for you what, you know, everything is okay, don't believe in it. So it is a way how to run away from the problems. Sometimes they are leaving an audience, sometimes they're just saying, but everything is okay. So on that time, they really had a lot of discussions if everything is okay. And they ended, okay, but there are a real value. So they agreed on that, and they agreed it firstly on the top level. So then you have agreement on managerial level. It's very easy to start a journey. And in year 2015, they set gender equality and diversity as one of our strategic goals. Mm-hmm. Strategic goal, the next steps, they approved the policy of diversity and gender equality, and then they started to do some very practical and very concrete things. KPI setting, identifying of the areas that we should start, agreeing on the activity plans.
Okay. So what you were telling this morning at breakfast, some figures are of where you are at right now in terms of gender equality. Could you please tell us how this is at this moment?
You know, in the morning I thought what I will try not to use a lot of numbers, because usually, you know, bankers, they are talking a lot about money and about numbers. So, but still, yeah.
I do want to hear them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. But just before answering into your question, it was just one of the areas that we started with. So they set 5 priorities for us. And again, just to achieve business results, you should have an agreement what you would like to achieve. So they started from diversity in leadership, and you were talking about quotas. They didn't set exact quotas, but they told for organization what our target is 40-60, starting from top level. Today in Lithuania management board, they're having 7 members, so it's not so easy to divide 50-50. And 3 out of 7, they are women, and 4, they're having men. But then it comes to all managerial positions in Lithuania, Swedbank, they are quite close to 50, and here the women are even a little bit ahead compared with the men.
Okay, so that's quite impressive. So can you tell us something about what it did to the company as a whole that you were moving forward on this subject?
You know, we can talk a lot about company results, but the Swedbank results are public ones. You can follow on share value quite easily, and you will understand are they good or not good achieving the business results. So let's do it. It's quite interesting ones. But another thing, it's really created absolutely different emotional environment in organization. It was the first step. Another thing, you know, when you are starting your recruitments in the market, you are looking for both genders, like men and women equally. You are changing your communicational tones, and what we discovered, but they are getting more and more applications in the same position. Because in banking, before they're talking, for example, about broker, usually you see men in that. Then you are putting like a different photos, even in advertisement, you are getting absolutely different kind of candidates who are coming to organization. But being honest, they did one more thing in organization. Okay, first one was like diversity in leadership. The second one was equalizing salaries. They are talking a lot, but they're having the same condition. But they did quite huge research in organization at that time, trying to understand where do they have spots of inequality. So for today, difference in salaries is less than 1%. Wow. Of course, they are talking about the same position, the same competence level. It doesn't mean that everybody should get the same salary, absolutely no. But then it comes to gender question in the same position, the same competence. So for today, they have 1% differences in salary.
Maybe I may add something to these numbers, because I recognize indeed it has to start at the top.
Yeah.
If I take our Federation Internationale Hockey, we have 16 board members and 7 of them are women, and that's quite a lot, but 4 elected members need to be women. We have 2 continental presidents who are women, and the athletes panel representative is a woman. And from the moment on that happened, that instead of 4, 7 women were in the board, the whole discussion changed. Yeah. There was more attention from emotional things, for behavior, for cultural things, and it was not only about figures and numbers. And that was quite interesting to see. What helped also was that in the management of the FIH, the CEO is a man, but in the management level below, 4 of the 6 directors are women.
Yeah.
So the combination of a different change around the table and behind the doors, I would say, really made a change. So gender policy was suddenly a subject that was on the agenda.
Yep.
And we try to emphasize every time that, taking into account of values must not be a special agenda point, it must be everywhere what we are doing. So it's really important that everything we do together
Yep.
reflects in what you're talking about.
So essentially what you say is that whenever you have this gender balance at the top, and maybe age balance as well in terms of getting different perspectives and insights, once you are there, it is quite logical to have diversity as a subject in everything you do. So that's the reason why you start at the top. So what I'm interested in is how culture is an element in this change process, because you have this different perspective from the Danish NOC and the EOC. Can you tell something about how different those cultures are in terms of being able to adapt to this problem?
Yes, there are certainly very different cultures. And as I said in my opening remarks, I think the way of our structures, the way of our pyramid structures makes things different on the different levels. I believe that IOC is making quite a lot of progress. IOC is not a democratic entity, and sometimes I envy Thomas Bach because he can just decide about all the commissions that he have equal men and women. Now we have 30 IOC members out of 90-some IOC members, which is a big progress. We have with the events for the Olympic Games equal and so on. In EOC and in Danish NOC, we have this pyramid structure where we have to, even though the president can decide some things and can try to make leadership and so on, we are still, we cannot do things without having our electorate choosing to do this. And therefore we have to change things from the bottom in order to really make a new situation. And there, even though in a number of ways NOC Denmark and the European Olympics committees do have different cultures and are on different levels in the history, we are a little bit alike, because in EOC also only what all the members decide to get people elected to the board is what can happen. At our last General Assembly 4 years ago in EOC, not even one woman was elected to the board of the 16 members. Then we co-opted Dinah, which is very good and has made a big difference. And this time we have 4 candidates, and hopefully those 4 women will be elected. But it really takes time, and it takes that the federations, we have new leadership in quite a lot of the national Olympic committees in Europe, so therefore I'm a little more optimistic about the future. Yeah. But it takes time.
Okay.
It's a very important example of leadership, that you take care for the succession of your board. And not a week before the elections, but you have to start a year before.
Yeah.
If you really want to get men and women in. And especially with women, you have to realize if you start to ask a woman, the first answer is often, no, I don't know if I can combine it, but especially if they are not confident in it. We have heard it these days several times. So that means you have to take time to convince them and to show them that it is possible, and that you also show that you will support and help them. That means you have to do it on time, and you have to take the time to get them in. Yeah. And then I think everybody can succeed. And often the answer is what you get is that men answer you, yeah, but they are not there. Yeah. They are just simply not there.
Yeah. So what you basically say is that you require a different approach if you want to have women to apply for the position. So can you recognize that, Nathalie?
Yeah, of course. In the French national, in the French NOC, NOC, they do a special program for leadership of women just before the election in 2016. And so they have 14 women who they prepare them to be elected, to be candidate and to be elected in the federation. And it was really great because they not only make the courses to have to speech in public and to be confident and so on. They also do coaching and do mentoring of these women. And so they also prepare them to be candidate to the list of election, and so to have more confidence in their skill and to be prepared for that. And I think it's a great evolution in culture because we know that, as you say, if we say to women, go to the national federation or international federation, she's going to say, no, I have not the abilities to do that.
Okay.
And I think in the French Federation of Badminton, this is we have the chance to be really young because the French Federation is young. We are only 40 years old, and so all our members in the executive board, or in departmental and regional, are really young. They are between 20 to 60, but more of them have got around 40 years old. And so they have got another culture of women and men, and so that's why we have the diversity of people in the French Federation for women.
Okay, I think this building culture is an interesting part because maybe Loreta, you have this experience in Swedbank. How did you go about? Which special measures did you take, which were profiting the actual culture in the organization?
To start from measures and from culture. Culture is always a very long and very hard job that you need to do because it somehow not appears like from that. But really, building a culture, then they already had quite diverse leadership position, equalized salaries. They started wide learning program. And the target for this program was to educate internal stakeholders. So everybody in an organization should understand why they are doing and what they're doing. So, and already for 2 years, we are running this different learnings, trainings, discussion program for management, for different layers managers, not taking into account men or women, for both. And the most important message is that really they should promote non-stereotypic thinking. Then you're having a different opinions around the table. You are getting much more value. This year they started at least to measure the diverse teams and trying to compare with another teams. And we will see results. It should take a time. It doesn't happen like in one night, but what we can see, what in these diverse teams, from these diverse teams, they are getting much more creative ideas, different opinions, and it's quite interesting to work with them. But coming to reflection regarding women's willingness to step into position, it was very good comment, I don't remember, from our HR or from some researchers, what woman is ready to apply, then she fit 95% of requirements. Man is applying, then he's okay with 30. So our way of thinking are very, very different. It's nothing bad, but he should understand these differences.
Yeah, okay, I guess so. So when looking at gender balance and diversity, I have this question of like should you value diversity on the whole spectrum as important as gender diversity, for instance? What's your experience?
You know, now they're having a new challenge, a new joke. They're working in service sector. And then you're looking at service sectors, finance is not like exceptional from that. They are very female business. So in service, in cafeterias, in shops, in banking branches, you can see a lot of women. So now they're having another challenge, how to attract the male employees to the bank as well. So challenges is changing. But coming to diversity, and then they're talking about diversity, they are talking about full range of diversity. And it's not only about gender. Sometimes they should look for diversity even in opinion. Because it's very easy for us as for managers to have a discussions with people who having absolutely the same opinion as we have. So you do not need to put an attention, you do not need to spend the time, you do not need to focus, it's easy. But then you are getting different opinion around the table. You're learning by yourself, firstly. So then they're talking about diversity, and all the policies which are approved in the banking, they're talking about diversity from age, nationality, gender, opinion, different religion, etc., etc. So then they're talking about diversity, we're talking about diversity in full scope.
So Niels, can you reflect on that?
Yeah, I believe that what we are working for is to get as many people as possible to sport and to win as many medals as possible. That are our two main issues. And I think the diversity to reach that is important, both with the gender, with much more young people getting into leadership positions and getting more ethnic groups into leadership positions. We decided when we had this discussion a couple of years ago that we would start and make our most effort about gender equality, because it was the most evident lack or problem we had. But today I maybe regret a little bit that we didn't put as much effort into the youth part of it, because that may even solve some of the gender equality problem also, because the young people are much more equal, and they are much more ready to also for the girls and the women to take part. So I think the youth part of it is just as important as the gender part.
Okay. Marijke, maybe you can reflect with us on the importance of the structure, the actual democracy structure that we have. In what way do you think it prevents us from getting to the change that we want to see?
Yeah, that's not easy to answer, because if I look into my own federation, we all understand that has to happen, and we all understand it takes time. And indeed, it's not only that we are focusing on women, on gender balance, but also on getting para-hockey in, as we call it, and the youth leaders are for us enormous important. You have to realize, if you are a sport federation, you make policy, but you also have to take care that it happens. Mm-hmm. So the way you get it done is very important, and that's why you need to have a lot of people, stakeholders involved with you to be sure it happens. Now, I will give you an example. The para-hockey in Europe. At a certain moment, we decided if we sent out a bid for the European Championships, that the one who bids also have to bid for a para-hockey championship. And the first time in 2013, that was strange, difficult. But it was a part of the bidding process. And now we see in 2017, it has already been a big party, I would say, with 9 countries involved, with 12 teams. And we know already in 2019 we will have our championships in Belgium. We will have at least 16 teams coming from 12 countries. Mm-hmm. So you have to make clear to people what you want to achieve, and then it happens. And yeah, especially if you're talking about emotion, talking about para-hockey, that is emotion. If you see what a joy these people give to all of us, and what a joy it gives to their parents and their friends, that they are also a full athlete during 3 days. Yeah, and that makes it the next time easier, because everybody feels it's very important.
Yeah. I guess, Nathalie, in France you spend a lot of time in training and education, I guess. You also have a women's network. What role do they have in this?
Yeah, there is a women network in based on the CNO, not CNO, NOC, sorry. Mm-hmm. And now there is more than 200 women involved in this network, and so they organize meeting and so on. And there is also a lot of communication between the federation of this subject, because we are working together on a lot of subjects, like diversity. You are talking about diversity. For me, diversity in our federation, we have got a committee before named Committee for Women, and now it's named Committee for Diversity, for Mixities, and for Diversities. It's not only the women, it's the youth, it's the people, the disabled people, it's the people more than 50 years old, and so on, the health, and so on. And so the networking is, I think it's really important to have, to exchange good practices and to share it. And it's really important for women, but it's also really important to involve men in these good practices.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that it's almost time to broaden the discussion with the rest of the room here. But before we do that, maybe Loreta, do you have any concrete takeouts that you say, well, in the process that we had, these are the things that for us really worked in terms of getting it across the table?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what I should do? Firstly, should agree that it is important. If you want, let's calculate a value. They can help you on that, so it's easy. But let's agree that it is important. It's not about women's being in leading positions. It's about real value for your organizations. And then onboard your top management as well. It will be much, much easier.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add to that, Niels?
I agree with that, that it's the most important message to get to our federations, that is to look at the value, what do they get out of having this diversity.
Okay, thank you. Marijke?
Yes, I must say it's straight out of my heart this time. We have 4 values in Europe, and that's we like to be inclusive, we like to be positive, we like to be accountable, and we like to be dynamic. And we hope that everything spreads energy in a way. And with everything we do, we keep these values in the back of our mind. And that really helps us to make the next step. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very proud it's working and that the whole board is supporting these values. And during our board meetings, I feel sometimes people refer to it, that's part of their thinking.
Nathalie?
And last thing, you know that we are going to welcome the Olympic Game in Paris in 2024.
You are?
And
no.
Yeah.
Great.
It's sure now.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And one of the practices for 2024, it's 50% of male and 50% of women for practicing, but also in the of course in the boarding of the executive boarding of the Olympic Game in France. And we are also to make a lot of education for youth for this diversity. And this is one of the, I think we win about that. We win the game about that because there is a lot of problem. There is a lot of a project about the sustainability of the world with Olympic Games, the diversity, and so on. Social impact and environmental impact for Paris.
So I guess that the Olympic education program is a great value to position both sustainability, our future leaders, leadership, and equality. So
of course, there is it's going to have a lot of education program for the youth in the scholar education in the scholar system. Sorry.
So I guess that we have a kind of a sandwich here. So we start with education at the basic level, but we also start at the top, positioning the agenda item on diversity as a broader perspective. Okay, I would like to go to the room now and to see whether there are any questions. Before we do that, please could you rise again for me? This is not going to be very difficult, but I have some questions that I'd like to answer for yourself. So if you all stand, and if you answer the question with yes, you can stand, and if you answer the question for yourself with no, you sit down. It's quite simple, so I want to see how many people we have left when I have finished my questions. It's 4 pretty simple questions, but please be very well aware before you answer it with yes, before you do. So the first question is, do you personally actively support gender equality? Personally, actively support gender equality. And it's not a bad thing if you have to say, no, I'm not doing that, because you may be here just to learn from others and to take the first steps. So, okay, thank you very much for that very honest answer here. Okay, so, but do you also do that on age and other elements of diversity? Actively promote age equality and diversity as a general subject? Oh, okay, some people are standing again. Okay, so that's a positive surprise for me. Okay. In your country, from your organization, do you personally feel that you are well on the way of tackling the problem? Are you well on the way of tackling the problem? Okay. I think, in a way, this is a positive answer as well, because we have a lot to learn, and that's why we came here. So, okay, thanks again for this very honest answer. Okay, and the last question... The last question will be, are you proud, personally proud, like, think about Halle. Are you personally proud of what you have accomplished in this area? Ah, okay, some people are going standing again.
Interesting, eh?
Okay. So, if you are proud of what you have accomplished, please take the time to raise your hand if you want to tell to the public what it is that you are actually proud of. Okay. Well, that's a difficult one. Okay. Well, you may be seated again. I'm quite happy with this result. Thank you very much. Okay. So maybe just raise your hand if you want to have any questions for the distinguished panel that we have here. Can I see some hands? Yes, Miss.
Not a question special to our friends, but according to your question, I would like to say that it's not necessary to wait what someone will do for women, yes, what I can do. So I would like to tell you what I did and what I am doing now to support women in sport. First of all, I remember that more than 20 years ago, I was a member of European Sport Conference, a women working group. So that time I just imagined that this problem. So I came back to Poland, because I'm from Poland, Irena Szewińska, and I started to organize with my women friends Polish Women's Sport Association. I used to be president of this organization 10 years. And also, I imagined that it's necessary to organize in Polish Olympic, to create in Polish Olympic Committee, Women and Sport Working Commission. And they established such commission in Polish Olympic Committee. I am chair of this commission. And what we are doing to promote women. So, we decided to promote women coach. Each year, women coach, so they send our sport organization the proposition, and we decided who should be the best women coach in the year. But also, my dear friends, men, it's also awards men, coach men who work with women. Mm-hmm. So second. Yeah. So I think that is very interesting, and the coaches, women as well as men, are very, very happy. We have also for the other awards for all life, what they are doing for men and women and so on. So this is one thing. The other, I think what I can do, I used to be an athlete from track and field, what I can do to support women in sport. So a few years ago, this year was 8th edition, I am patron of the race Samsung Irena Women's Run. This run only for women, 5 kilometers, and the ladies ran now, like this year, about 2,000 ladies ran. So I have great satisfaction for this. And in my former background, I also would like to inform you that I used to be more than 20 years member of IWF Women's Committee. And that time, we support and push the event for women. So you can see that now we have hammer throw, pole vault, triple jump, marathon, long distance for women. And that time our committee, women's committee, put the proposition to IWF, and step by step new events for women were established. And that is also very interesting that the program of the World Championships, the same event should be, and they are, in the Olympic Games. So step by step, we work our committee. So
That's very good, thank you.
exactly. I would like just finish to say that we, everybody should do something. And I have satisfaction to work for promote women in sport. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that contribution. I think I like the note of having a personal responsibility to take some action, you know, and maybe it starts small and it may end in a bigger way, but so I think that's very beautiful. So if there's any other question, yes, please. Oh, that's cool. That's cool as well.
So just briefly sharing my experience as I stood up in my answer that yes, I'm happy what I'm doing so far. Of course, don't misunderstand me, there is still to be done more. But first of all, I want to focus and emphasize on the great support of the IOC and again solidarity, what they are doing in respect of fostering women's leadership. What we are doing, and me as on my position, promoting just seminars, administration seminars, and also advanced sports management courses, as I'm the program director, project director there. And according to the recent decision of the IOC Olympic Solidarity, they have increased the amount of funding if we get increased number of women participants. And that gave us motivation, of course, to include more women, just to make public awareness and to involve more women from the national sports federations and from the stakeholders. And the result, actually, what we have done is rather positive. We got a very positive feedback.
Okay.
That's one thing. So, and just we will go to the same direction, of course, but much is to be done still. So, and my question, the second part is the question. Actually, still many of the coaches and many of the male representatives within sport, and especially leaders, male leaders, think that it is somehow complicated to work with the female group or female just representatives and with female sport teams. How your advice as experts, how we can break that stereotype? It's different case by countries, but still some good advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, maybe Niels, do you recognize in some way that it can be frightening to work with women, or difficult?
I think the problem, at least in Danish sport, is that we have way too few women as coaches. I think almost all the female teams, they have male coaches. And we would like to have female coaches in much more sports than we do right now. We have tried to make different programs to have the female coaches also getting to the elite level, but so far we haven't really succeeded. So we would be very happy to have some good advice about how we do that.
Okay, maybe some other comments from the panel?
Yeah, I can give a comment. I can only come every time with how we did it in hockey, and maybe you can use it. Talking about numbers in board members, committee members, is not always what reflects what's happening. What is also very important when you are in the boardroom, sitting around the table, that you grab your chances if they are available. I'll give you an example. In Europe, but also in the world, women hockey is very important. We don't have to make them important, they do themselves. They have a big fan engagement, a lot of fans around them, so they are important. The only thing what we can do is to give them also prime time and to acknowledge that they are important. So what did we do in England, European Hockey Champions 2015? We put the women final at the end. Normally, with a joint tournament, you have men final at the end, and that's the closing of the tournament. And we thought it would be fantastic in England, where the women team of England is very important, that we do it at the end. And you have to realize that the women hockey in England, the first team, they are really heroes. They have all distinctions from the Queen after they became Olympic medalists, gold medalists in Rio. Some of them have got honorable doctorates from universities. So they have every day somewhere a meeting or a gala to represent the hockey. Also good to know, in Argentina, we have a star, a hero, Luciana Aymar. She is more famous than Maradona. You wouldn't believe it. If she plays, all newspapers in Argentina are full of her, and there are a lot of newspapers. And she had also won the official contest in Argentina from Maradona. And that helps enormously to give the sport a profile. So what we are trying to do as board members, we are trying to use the possibilities we have to raise the profile.
So sometimes the devil is in the details, that where you make your choices, just you can shift the program in terms of pushing the attention to another level. I was going to badminton because in a way, my question to you is that in badminton, the mixed double item is the most important of the whole badminton tournament.
Yes,
so
it's
is
really,
there any special reason for that?
It's. I'm thinking about it about the during the breakfast, because 10 years ago, I think when you are talking about double mixed to a man, he will say to you, it's a single man with disabled people. It's not really, and now it's completely changed. Mixed double is really a really spectacular match, and most of the time it is a final. When you have a championship, it's the final, the double mix, because everyone loves double mix, the competitors and also the people who are practicing in leisure, because you have to exchange with your partners. If you show a double mixed badminton, it's not a really, it's about the vision of women, because the women have to be just in front of the net, and so we just have to keep the shuttlecock, and it's really intercept the shuttlecock. And do you say, oh, the man is on the front? On the back? Yes, on the back. Oh, sorry, on the back, and the back, and is going only to use his powerful to make the match, and the woman is in near the net and do nothing. But I think it's really a good example of gender equality, because they have got different skills and they have to use their different skills to win the point. And so it's, your question is really interesting, because you talk about how to show that to the men that it's not so complex to work with women. In the badminton, it's like that. The man is trust his partner, his woman partner, on the net, because she's going to make more points than him.
In a way, I guess it's the perfect example of equity in terms of there is a difference between men and women, and you use that in the game, and in the end of the day, this is the most spectacular and important event of the badminton tournament. Well, it's nice to hear. So I guess that the takeout here is you got to take your opportunities when they arise, and it's in simple decisions that you can do it. Yes, thank you.
First of all, thank you for your interesting speeches. It was very nice. I want to say that, of course, I support gender equality in all areas, not only in sport, in politics, in finance. But my question is connected more to sport itself. Do you think that there are still more masculine sports and more feminine sports? Because now this topic is so trendy that, to my mind, we start to make some strange things. Well, like in synchronized swimming, for example. In my country, we could hardly find men for synchronized swimming competitions. Now I hear rumors that in artistic gymnastics, there will be probably men competitions. Do you think that we still should not run after this in our gender politics? That maybe there are even some sports which are even harmful for women? I don't want to offend anyone, but I think that maybe weightlifting is not the best sport for women. Maybe I'm wrong, but in this fight for gender equality, maybe we should think a little bit more about feminine nature, feminine health, and maybe in some sports we don't need gender equality. For example, I'm a member of International Commission of Bobsleigh. And I remember when, Development Commission, I remember how difficult it was for men to give quotes to some mixed competitions or women's competitions in bobsleigh, not because there is a big queue of ladies who want to compete, but this is because it is trendy. It's easier to get this discipline now because you can report that there are more women in your sport. What's your opinion about this? Thank you.
Well, if I may, it's a very interesting question, and as people within the sport are maybe sometimes short-sighted into their own problems, I'd like to hear what comment Loreta has on is this in your view something that is a problem or not? You know, how do you feel about that?
It's very, very related with the previous question. What they should do that the male would start to train females. So, and it was very right conclusion, they are different. So forbidding one on another thing is not the right way. And what they should understand, if women will step in some sport activities, or vice versa, men will step in another sport activities, we'll have absolutely another sport activity. They can't expect what putting women in another, I don't know, in hockey and something, you will get the men's hockey. No, you will get another hockey. The question is, are they ready to accept these new sport activities? They will be different.
That's an interesting view. Thank you very much for that. Maybe some other comments? Yeah, Niels?
I think there are two dimensions in the comparison between male and female sport. And I think it's very important to judge each sport in its own right. That we, for example, in football, I believe that women football is having fantastic progress, and I think the final we saw at the European Cup this summer was on a really high level. But I don't think we shall ever try to compare how are the men playing football and how are the women playing football. We have to see it in its own right. And then I think it's important for the sports organizations, for the media, for everybody working with sport, that you give equal opportunities. That I think we are too conservative in the way that we are looking at sport, and the media and the sponsors and so on are looking at sport, instead of looking at a sport in its own right and finding out how can we develop that and how can we make that interesting. We too much compare it with each other. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in the previous panel where the media was discussed more widely, that you can see that you need to take the media by the hand and help them see that there is maybe a difference, but it is in its own merit. Just it's a game. It's an interesting game, and that's what it is. So I guess that's very important. So any other questions for the panel at this moment?
Yes, please. You know, what I think that the combined work of women and men together is the best solution for us to learn how to work with each other. Because what I want to ask you, do you think that combine team sport, men and women, because we see it already changing in swimming, the start relay, combined between the two men and women, and we see it also in tennis. So why not to bring it also to team sports? And that's the way to change and to stop being so conservative and to give more, I don't know, more interest
Okay, well, that's interesting. Yeah, Marijke,
Okay.
you know Holland.
Yeah, but if I understand you well, you are trying to introduce mixed teams in team sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot deny there's especially a difference between men and women in, I would say, in an athletic attitude. There's been a lot of research that women are more developed on a younger age and have a different running power than men have. I played myself hockey all my life, and I also played with men, and I can tell you it is quite dangerous, because men are much quicker than women, unfortunately, and they are also rather, rücksichtslos, I know in German word. So it's quite dangerous to combine it. So if you want to combine a team, say 5 against 5, then you also really have to change the rules. Maybe then it's possible. But I think for team sports it's more difficult to mix the teams because of the body language, I would say, than in individual sports.
So, yeah, Niels?
I think it's important to realize that there are differences between men and women physically, and it's good that there is that. And we will. I don't think we will ever have a situation where men and women are completely physical the same. And therefore, in very many different sports, you have to have 2 different competitions, because it doesn't give any meaning, maybe in equestrian and very few other sports where men and women can compete on an equal basis. So I think in team sports, except for maybe badminton mixed, it doesn't really give any meaning to have men and women on the same team. Where it gives very good meaning, that's in relays, like they do in triathlon, like they will now do in swimming, like they are considering in athletics, where 2 men and 2 women on a relay team compete with 2 men and 2 women on another relay team. There, I think it's interesting to do it, but not on a football team or hockey team or handball team. It's a no-go.
Okay, Loreta, how do you feel about that?
You know, it's just a memory came into my mind. You are discussing about professional sport. I'm not good at that at all. But you know, I remember when I was a small girl, I was playing football. Just the boys, and there's no problem on that. So something is changing in the middle, maybe with our bodies, but on that time, everybody were equal in that small football team.
Yeah, Nathalie?
I think in France there is some experience on baseball. Baseball, it's a men's sport, but I think they try to make some mixed team with. Of course, it's not the baseball that we know. It's another baseball. But they have got mixed team now with a girl and boy, and I think it works, because it's not exactly the same rules and so on. Probably, of course, because of the physics, you have to not to shot. But I think it can be a solution with another sport. And for badminton, we make another experiment. We have got a single man, single no, and now it's mixed. Where you have a team championship, of course, everyone have to win. But now we make a match with 7 points for the boy, 7 points for the girl, 7 points for the double mix, 7 points for the double woman, and 7 points for. So if you win the match, everyone is involved in it. And so I hope that we try it with a scholar system, and I hope it will be in the European game in Paris, this sort of rules.
So I guess that the lesson here is that some sports are just what they are, and as they developed, the physical differences can mean that it's very difficult to combine it, but I still think that the idea is very interesting, and I should also say that in the Netherlands, we are world champion in the sport where mixed teams are de facto, like netball. You have a mix of men and women in the same team. So I think that in the origin of a new sport, you may find some new notes of diversity and gender equality more than it used to be. So maybe we have some opportunities in development of grassroots sports anyway.
One extra remark from my side. Thomas Bach wants also to play hockey in mixed teams in the future. So in the end, you never know.
No. I guess again, this is about making choices and what do you promote and what do you stand for, and just try it out, you know, try it out and see what happens, I guess. So some other questions from the room at this point. Okay, well, I have one other suggestion to make, and it does take some participation from you guys in the room again. I would like you to take 2 or 3 minutes time to reach out to your neighbor, your direct neighbor, and if you don't have one, you should look behind or before you, and exchange 1 or 2 things that you have as a takeout for you from this whole exercise. So the 2 days that we had. So exchanges. Tell somebody else about what do you take home with you, what you didn't know before, or what you want to do when you get back home. Could you just do that for 2 minutes? Is that clear for everybody? And I'll be going round to check what the results are of this.
Yeah.
So we can have a short break of 3 minutes.
Yeah. And we had better close this.
Yeah.
You should ask the rest also where we're proud of.
Well, you are proud of. Yeah. Yeah, the 4 of you. Yeah, I'll just do the last round of do you have any takeouts for the room, and is there anything that you are specifically proud of? I will do that. Yeah, okay, no problem. Ik denk het wel, want we hebben nog een half uur, hè? 12:30. Oh, sorry. We still. Okay, well, we still have a half an hour, so I'll just go round to figure out if there's any interesting takeouts. Because I'm going to ask people, what did you learn from your neighbor? It does, doesn't it?
It's a good idea to get people together because it's much.
Yeah. Yeah, and ook heel moeilijk, very difficult because she's so passionate about what she does, you know, and sometimes it takes people a lot of time. But I still remember what you always say: don't interrupt a woman when she's speaking. So I'm trying not to interrupt her. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. Yeah. So suddenly I realize what I have done. This is going to be difficult to interrupt you, and I don't want to interrupt you because this is actually what we need to do more, I guess. Just have this discussion with other people, trying to tell each other what do you take away from here and what does help. So I'll be going around now, and I'll be asking you one very specific question, which is, what did you learn just now from your neighbor? Is there anything that you did learn from your neighbor? And obviously, if you don't want to talk, you don't want to talk, but I'll be harassing you for that. So, you're his victim.
Yeah, Niels from Olympic Solidarity, the other Niels in the room. Yeah, I learned from my neighbor about the importance of involving also young people and to, in fact, to consult young people, maybe from different NOCs that are on the executive boards of the NOCs, to try to implicate them, to have them consider what is the future of Olympic values in 10 years from now, and try to think more long term.
Okay, well,
This is
that's
the main
cool.
learning.
Yeah. Do you always feel appreciated as a youngster in the higher management layers?
Yeah.
You do? That's cool, that's cool. Great for the IOC then, I guess, yeah. So, yeah, Volker, please. What's your take out? What did you learn?
Yeah, my name is Volker Helmund. I'm the director of the IOC EU office in Brussels. And I just discussed with my neighbor, and she had the same point as Niels, so to start early with the education. But I'm personally not so pessimistic, because I think the future and the generation now is different from the generation 30, 40 years ago. So I think we're on the way. But I have a personal question to all women here, because I would ask you why you are so patient. If you look on the development, and I think it's quite slow what has happened in the last 20, 30 years, and I do not see that you are asking for, or that you are really in favor of quota. For example, Nathalie today said, I'm not in favor of quota, but when I would be a woman, I would say we need, at least for an intermediate time, we need quota now, and then we can discuss in a couple of years to get rid of it. So my question is why you are so patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Well, tell me, Marijke, how did you get so patient?
How did I get so patient?
Yeah.
Oh yes, actually I'm not patient at all. But I try to measure it a little bit, because otherwise it works against you. Actually, Volker, to be honest, it's always a change of being patient and being not patient. And if you are all the time the same, it doesn't work. But for me, from a very young age on, I already understood that I wanted to do something. And actually where I learned it was on the pitch. I organized all competitions for the under-8 boys and girls in my hockey club. And there I developed a skill to be clear to people. And you can understand, if you're clear, not everybody likes you. But sometimes, especially against parents of children, you have to be clear, because they don't understand that if their kid is on the field of play, it's the coach and it is the umpire who decides what's wrong and what's right, and not the parent. So not only the parent themselves, but also the parents together got problems. And there needs somebody to be clear to somebody else. And in the end, you develop to be clear in a polite way. And that's the development. And I think that attitude has brought me where I am now, to be clear, but also polite and patient. So there needs to be a combination. But I must say, yesterday, when I saw after the lunch that really the whole population of the room was changed, I was really very disappointed. And that's why I made a remark this morning. Because I think it's not acceptable that we, all of us here, are really talking seriously about how we get a gender balance done in all different levels. And that the people who are at the top of certain organizations don't listen to us. Because I think that's the central skill of everything, listening to somebody else.
I guess, Volker, that this means that you can be very direct about your own impatience, and that we all have your back on that. So, yeah, be very impatient. So maybe somebody else in the back of the room may have the microphone on. What did you learn just from your neighbor? So just hand it over. You have to harass people, really, because otherwise they don't talk, you know.
So I am Annette Fodor from Hungary. I am the Secretary General for Budapest Sports Union. And we were actually just discussing with my neighbor the lack of confidence. It was really interesting to see your last question, that there were many of us were standing, and you asked us to present like why we are proud of ourselves. And when it came to the action, everybody sat down. And Hala just mentioned that she was one of the first who sat down. my achievement, and I am proud of it, although I know it's still a lot to do, but I became Secretary General just a couple of months ago, and I think our country is really conservative mind has in the sport government. So to be as young and female to get a leadership position, I am proud of it. And I am also an youth delegate, so I'm happy to talk about that. As we are young, I'm really happy that you involve us for this dialogue and for this conversation. And I just wrote a project for the European University Sport Association about gender equality university sport, and it got the funds for the European Commission. It's connecting Turkey, Germany, Slovenia, and Portugal. So if someone is in the room and is interested in it, I'm happy to talk about it furthermore. And now I would like to challenge my partner, because she sat down, not to talk about her achievement, but I would like to ask her to present it, why she's proud of and what she achieved in gender equality.
That's very good. Thank you very much for that contribution. Yes. Well.
Hi everyone, I'm also Halla, or Halla from Iceland. I've been in the sports movement for 25 years. I'm now in the position of being the office manager of the NOC of Iceland. What I'm taking from this forum is maybe that we need to do something more organized in order to gender equality, and aim for something special. We think we're doing okay in Iceland, but we can always do a lot better. And I thought the other Halla was very inspirational, and I think we will use something from that keynote.
So do you think you will profit more from the Iceland network and initiative, or more from the international network and initiatives?
Both.
Both.
Definitely,
okay. Yeah,
yes.
Equally. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, very nice. I would like to have some other gentlemen reflect on the learnings of these days. Could you please do that?
Well, I'm just thinking about the thinking of sport. Sport is excellence. So giving quota, because I believe that the discussion is most on yes for quota, not for quota. And I see many ladies that are against, because they say, I want to have to pair things. Well, so it is true, sport is excellent, so only the best can go, nothing. But on the point of view of education and culture, we have to work a lot at. And so if we want to increase, I think that we have to go put quota to get faster. If we want to carry on, just think a family, one man, one woman, and so this is my point of view, but this could be different. And in children, when you said your son, do something, he doesn't do this, against. So I don't know, forcing sometimes is not the same. But I believe at the end, I was against, but maybe I could be in favor of the quota. But
Okay.
this is opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe that's something that I want to hand over to the panel, because the position and the role of the IOC is obviously very important. And I remember Thomas Bach saying in his introduction, I cannot impose, but I can give a good example. How do you feel about that expression? He cannot impose? Is that true in your mind?
Not completely true, because IOC have some financial means, and if IOC wants some certain policies to go through towards the international federations and towards the NOC, IOC could do more by either punishing or rewarding the NOCs and the IFs economically. So you can do something. I don't completely agree that IOC cannot do anything. I think, on the other hand, some of the most important things IOC and Thomas Bach has done is Agenda 2020. Even though it's not that concrete, I believe that there is some very good phrases that we can really use to say this is the direction we have to go to. But it's also important for all of us, including IOC, to actually do what they say in the Agenda 2020.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Okay. Well, I guess you can impose either on financial level, because you can steer with money, is what people sometimes say, and I think also on a personal level, you can just go to somebody and say, why is this the situation? Why do you accept that? You know, so in another way, on a moral level, I think you can. So maybe something there to learn. So is there any other comments from the room that you want to bring to everybody else as a takeout for today? Okay. I have a final question for the panel members, because in the end we learned that well, you try to do the best. Obviously, everybody here does. And one of my first questions is, are you proud of what you have achieved? So, well, maybe that's a question also for you guys. What kind of activity or things that you have accomplished make you actually proud? And would you please share that with us? Maybe Nathalie?
Yes, I'm going to give you a bad example. During the last Olympiad, we are 50-50 in the badminton, and most of the time when we go to the institution for dinner or something like that with committees, the regional committee or so on, there is a lot of men. And when I arrived, they just check the hand of the man, and for me they say nothing. And I'm a vice president of the federation, but they don't check me the hand, they don't tell me hello. And one time I go to the man, he's the vice president of the region or something like that, and I say, hey girl, hey boy, I'm also the vice president of the federation. And he say, oh, I think you are the woman of the women of this. And it's incredible, because most of the time we are shy on this during these events. And now I'm really proud when I go in this meeting to be the first one to check the hand of the man and to say, hello, I am the vice president of the federation. Mm-hmm. And it was always like that before. Even if the national committee is not there, Jean-Michel, but it was the same thing in the national committee. Before, when I arrived in the national committee, no one knew me and no one said me hello. And now when I arrive, they say that, oh, Nathalie is coming, so we have to check her hand at the beginning. And I think I am proud, because now a lot of women in the French Badminton Federation do the same thing. We arrive and we say, okay, hello, we are some women, but we are we have got a power for the decision making in the federation.
Well, I guess then in your direct behavior, of which you can be very proud, you start new culture, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Loreta.
Oh yeah, starting from corporate part, there are a lot of things to be proud on that. I'm really proud that they have these equal salaries in organization. I'm really proud of seeing happy employees' faces, good atmosphere on that. But I'm also very, very proud on that Swedbank was acknowledged and awarded in the global level. So this year, in global corporate gender equality index, Swedbank was ranked on 12th position among 3,000 companies. It's already something that you can be proud of. But this from corporate side. Then it comes to my personal lives. You know, I'm just promised not to use a lot of numbers, but I would like what you would remember one number. World Economic Forum announced what if we will move as they are moving right now, it will take 117 years to achieve equality, gender equality, and to close all the gaps in healthcare, education, politics, economics, in gender equality. Sorry guys, for me, 117 years is too long time period.
You're in pinch.
So I really would like to encourage not only women, but also men to step in. If it's okay for you, that time period, let's live with that. For me, it's not okay. And they can't rely on young generation. Young generation is incalculated in these 117 years. That's a fact.
Okay, yeah, well, that's an appeal for action. Thank you very much. Marijke.
I am the most proud of the Youth Leaders Festival that we organized in August. 5 days, 31 persons from 20 countries were coming to Amsterdam, and we made a program about event management, about media, about leadership, and all of them had to give a presentation and there was a short list, and that short list was presented at a Thursday afternoon before our General Assembly. 3 boys, 3 girls presented their case. It could be about umpiring, it could be about a training stage, it could be about top sport, doesn't matter, it was their subject. And I must say, when I saw these youngsters there, also I have to mention a Lithuanian girl, speaking English fluently, no shyness at all. Really fantastic what they produced. In the end, there was one winner, and the one winner was a boy. He had a presentation about para-hockey, and he presented that the next day on our General Assembly. And seeing these young people there, speaking so freely, I thought, yes, we made it, they are here.
That's beautiful. They can do, if you give them the platform and the trust and support to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Niels?
Yeah, I think there are many things that I'm proud of. Since I became president of NOC and Sports Confederation in Denmark 10 years ago, high sports participation, a lot of medals, a lot of successful events, very high degree of unity in Danish sport. But I must say what I'm not proud about is the situation about diversity. When I became president, I had thought and I had hoped that we would move much faster. We have moved way in these 10 years, and I believe that we will move a lot in the coming years, but it's much slower than I had hoped and anticipated.
Okay, so is there anything, speaking about personal responsibility, that you will take from here to the EOC board when you get back?
Yes, it has to be one of the priorities in the coming years. As I said in the beginning, there are 4 candidates for the EU6com, and I really hope that women will be elected, because I think we will have a much better board if we are more diverse, and this is of course one of the important things to work with in the coming years.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So I guess that is the end of this very beautiful discussion, I guess. We'll be having lunch right now, but may I first have your warm applause for this beautiful panel. Thank you, and to you guys, please keep sharing, keep questioning each other on this subject, and love each other. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Super conducting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And don't forget to check out the poem suggested by Huibert, poet by Rudyard Kipling. And okay, so we're done with our discussion panels. We have a 1 hour and 30-minute break as souvenirs handed to our speakers of the final panel. And 2 o'clock, we're expecting you to be here for the resolutions of this forum. So we have a break now.